Welcome back. I am on my website and today we'll be looking at my approach to set design, analog set design, working together with a still life photographer. As you can see on my website, I have an analog section and then an AI section. And I'm going to show you a few examples for those set design series I made. So let's jump into it. So here I have a series of projects I've made together with 3 or 4 photographers from Stockholm, and they are mostly fashion related. And the reason being, to give you a little bit of context, is that in 2008 I launched a physical magazine on fashion photography, graphic design and street art, and it went well, but we were about to release issue number 2, which was about 300 pages, and I had most of the content. And then the financial crisis kicked in, and the people who had invested in the magazine thought that it would not be a good idea to invest, obviously. And so we left the project, and fast forward 2016, I decided to relaunch the project as a digital format. So it was a quarterly, but in 2008 it was a biannual. And it was about fashion photography and set design only. So it was a sort of a new format. And I wanted to contribute to this magazine as well as a set designer, together with still life photographers from Stockholm. So at the time I did not have any contacts and I did not have any experience in making set design installations, but I knew I could do it, having a background within art and graphic design. So I met with Niklas Alm, the still life photographer from Stockholm, very talented. We did a first series and then we collaborated on other series as well. Let's take a look at that first one here. So the backstory is that I approached the photographer Niklas, and then I told him I wanted to collaborate with him and make a series of images. He asked me who would do the set design. I said I would do it. He asked me if I had a portfolio. I said I don't have any. And I said, but give me just 3 months. And I was convinced that I'd be able to do it. So fast forward 3 months and we come to this. So let's jump into Figma. Let's take a look at these photos and I'll go through the process. So you have 3 different distinctive sets here. They have one thing in common. It's the sneakers series. And we have 2 brands. The first 2 are from Graham Shoes. It's not a brand that exists anymore. And then the third one is Nike. And the way that I used to work before, at least when I started, was that I would collect some items of all kinds. Then I also visited secondhand shops and collected stuff from the streets, and also construction shops which had like electrical components, and especially the kind of stuff that you're not supposed to see. They're like components you use for the structure of the home, of a building, and I wanted to give them more visibility. When combined with a fashion product, they had nothing to do together, but somehow when you made an installation, it all came together pretty nicely. And obviously I tried to connect the elements with the actual product. For example, if you look at the shoes, it's laser cut and you had a cutter there. You look at what is it called, the sole of the shoe here, and it's an effect that you can get with a spray can. When you apply pressure on the cap in a certain way, not too strong, you get this type of effect that I also painted here. And here I got some asphalt from the street. I also removed the laces from the product and they ended up here in its own little sculpture. I added some wood bit that I found and I painted. And I connected everything with these metal and golden strings as well. Replaced the laces here with these black strings. And here, so in the last one, you have like a pretty strong yellow color, and you have the laces replaced with electronic. That was the time where I got interested in wearables as well, and so that connected the thing with it. And these parts here are like the construction objects here, parts. They're not supposed to be seen, and they are actually parts of an IKEA drawer set, if I remember well. So I made a composition with that. So it's pretty much abstract. I am going to show you now how it all started with the actual process. So I find pieces of wood and I paint them. I take photos of every step of the process from different angles. I try to find the best way to photograph the laces. This could have been its own photo as well. When you do an editorial, you can do 3 different ones, but you can make from the same image, you can make different photos. So I tried this one, and this one turned out the best. So even within each try, I tried different type of different combinations, different ways of putting the laces together. So you have like top views, you have side views. I think that's the one we ended up going for. And that was the my old place where I used to live in Nyköping. And that was a chaotic but very creative environment. You had a lot of sets going on at the same time here. I also tried different ways of doing the set, like more sort of simple, but it didn't work out. And then where you pack everything, obviously you have a record of all the angles, everything, and the final set. And we ended up like this. And then you recreate the set once you are the photographer. And obviously I had already thought about what type of lighting, what kind of backdrop. But the good thing with the photographer is that Niklas used to challenge me. That was like a real collaboration, and he had also some good ideas. But for the most part, we went for the angle that I wanted and the kind of backdrop. But he always had some good input with regards to obviously his own craft photography. And as I was learning set design, I was also learning about photography, though I was not a photographer myself. I had to learn certain principles in terms of composition, lighting, etc. Because when I was working with the magazine already in 2008, I was briefing creative directors, photographers from all over the world. And so you must be able to give feedbacks once you get the initial idea, what they wanted to do, and any retouching, suggestions and stuff like that. So this was the second one. And same here, made the set. I would obviously try to find the best angle like the other one, and also you can walk around something you cannot do with AI. You cannot walk around the set and choose the best angle. But I'll touch on that a bit later. So that was, let me bring this one so you can see how my work evolved. This is a sort of unique artistic interpretation for a fashion editorial. And anyone who wanted to get into that field would produce something unique, probably. And unique doesn't mean it's original, that it has character and it has a certain style that is only your own style. Because I was looking at what other people were doing in terms of set design, but I didn't want to get too influenced by the trends and all that. So I always wanted to do my own thing, even as a newbie. At some point, I realized that every object here, for most of them, they were found ready-made objects. And the actual installation is unique and has character and it's original. But I wanted to make it even more unique. And so I decided to actually design my own forms and objects like these. The domino already existed, but not broken like this. The drawing is also handmade here on the paper. And this shape is actually made of many shapes that are put together, glued and painted, etc. in a workshop. The result is even more interesting because people looking at this image recognize obviously the trainers, they recognize that type of material, these, the spray can and the cutter, okay? And the overall aesthetic, they might just like it or not or whatever. But here, the only thing they recognize really is the fashion product. The graffiti is bespoke. This exists already, it's a ready-made item, but I customized it. So I used to blend, for the most part, it was like shapes that I had created myself, and I dropped a few items that already existed for enhancement purposes, or like you had a really nice reflection here of the arc. And here you have the graffiti here, usually, and it's also painted the wrong way, and it's done on purpose. It's you can see the drips going downwards here, which they're supposed to be vertical. If they were vertical, then they would end up like this one. So you have the pot here. And you're also missing the roller or the brush, and that's okay, because I didn't want to have it. Initially, you'll see in the 3D model that it was there, but then I removed it. Also here, there was a reference. So this is my tag, and this is my reference to a shout out to Taki183, a famous graffiti writer from New York in the late 60s. So you have some references here. And also here in the drawing, not all of the initials where I think you have the S here, which was cut out. It was for Sofia. Sofia was the retoucher, and it ended up being cropped like this. This is for Niklas. And the T, I can't remember actually. It must have been for something. Oh yeah, Timberland, sorry. Timberland is the brand here that we used, and you can see that I'll show you in the image later what that reference is for the domino. So here we have a combination of both like graffiti, set design, photography. So it's all analog and then digital photography. But also to get to that result, I had to actually design these shapes first, because I had to get them cut the exact way that they are in the image. And the same for those dominoes and same for these. So let's take a look at the actual 3D models, and that's how I used to work. So I would use 3D as a tool to model the all the shapes, not as a render, like a final output, because there are some people who are 3D designers and they would try to, so their job is to make stuff like this, but in 3D. But I prefer to do the real thing. I mean, this is so clean that you would almost think that it is like 3D, but it's not, it's a photograph. If we go back to the 3D, it's a good way to brief the photographer as well, because I would send him like a mood board. I would send him these images as well, and some references as well, like this. This is where the domino idea came from, with these holes here, and it's replicated here. And obviously I have an idea. You can see that the bar is leaned against the wall here, but in the final result, so let's bring this down to compare. You can see the differences. Oh, sorry, this is wrong. It should be this way. So I had the idea already to draw something, but I did it on paper, not on a 3D model. And you can see that there are some changes to the composition, but you can see that you have a compass here. So I had to move that one over here. That became this, and you can see that it's touching the edge here. So that was a nice visual trick as well. You could also play with, I knew that this would be glass, although in the rendered image here you don't have glass, but I knew there would be like some kind of reflection here. So if you just put half, then you will get the whole here. I had done the same trick here with the heart here. So I just did half and with reflection, then you get. So these are also photography and set design that I've done. So let's get back to this. You can see that the shoe is not pointing to the same direction, and you have, initially it was supposed to be like this, but it ended up like that. I even, no, I don't have it here, but I think there was like, I had an image with a roller as well here, but I removed it. But it's pretty similar, the end result is pretty similar. I knew that I would paint this one with graffiti, and then this one would be a split. I also played with the composition here. So if you think of the image as a frame, I played with the photography principle about frame within a frame. This is a frame, then that object is also a frame, and then you have also that circle. So you have like 3 frames, if you like. And for that, you had a few more shapes that appeared. We knew this would be glass, and in the end it was supposed to stop like this, but I continued to have that part here, and I think I had even another version. But then you can see this way, when you use and play with material and reflection, you can see both the front, the viewer can see the front, and the, not the front, but like the left side of the sneaker, but you can also see what is the right side of the sneaker, as well as these parts as well. So now let's jump into the actual 3D program just to show you how I make it in 3D. So you can also have all the right dimension, because you then export it and then you send it to a company that cut all of these parts. So let's go to the perspective view. So as I said, when I was at home doing the physical set in my living room, I used to go around and take photos of different angles to try to find the best one. And when you work with 3D, then you just rotate. So you try to find the best angle like this. So it's a different way of working, and you can see every part here. You can move them around. They were supposed to be like this. I glued everything and painted. But if we get back to the main view here, you can design it from the front and then get a perspective view at the same time, and you can go in this view and also rotate if you wanted. You can try to find the best angle for it. So I did the same for the other one. Oh, so here's the roller I talked about. You had also the part that's supposed to be on top. That was removed. That was removed. But it's a good way to prepare yourself for when you send all the material to the photographer. Because what you can do here is set a certain camera angle and get the exact same settings that can be transferred to the camera of the photographer. So I remember that the photographer was pretty impressed, and he had not worked with somebody who had prepared like this, and that made his job easier as well. Also, think of if you had to prepare it and show it to a client. You can show like different angles. You can show a mood board, and that's so much better, I think. Let's get back to Figma. And now let's talk about AI a little bit. Let's go down here. And so these images, but before I do that, let me go to Spline, which is another 3D tool that I use. And so here I am in Spline, and here you can do both modeling and rendering. But I use it mainly to calculate distances and see if someone is, if we have like an image on a wall, how big should it be, depending on if it's an open plan room or is it a room in a corridor. So you can imagine that you, in a room with a corridor, you don't want to have that image taking like the majority of the wall space. So let's get back to Figma, and I'll show you some images I've made with AI. So basically everything that I have learned for set design compositions, working with photographers, all those skills are transferable to AI. And you can see here that you can get like super fine details. But what is the difference between 3D and AI? Because these images you could basically make in 3D. So let me go back to Spline. If we take this character, for example, we take the viewer, and we can see that he's got a material applied to him. We have lighting, we have color. We can change, for example, the color. But you cannot customize it, obviously, and choose, for example, a matte cap, and then upload an image. Basically added a texture to this character. So now he has the sort of iridescent material. So, and let me show you that image. You can use what's called a matte cap to texture an object in 3D. And the reason I'm showing you this is because this is how you would work when setting up a scene if you wanted to make something like this. You would have first to model every object here. So, and it gets a little bit complicated here because you have various materials here. You have sort of black marble, you have clouds, so like gas, if you like, or fume, and then you have liquid. And for each of these, you would have to create also, on top of creating the model, you'd have to create the matte cap, the texture for it, and then point the light coming this way. And the difference with 3D is that you end up with a flat image. So even the different objects, they're not layers like you would have in Photoshop, but in 3D it can also be a layer. So if we go back to a spline, we can see it has the corridor, the image, it's actually a corridor, main wall, ceiling, etc. So you have everything as a main as object. So the difference is that everything here is just a flat image. You can't rotate around it. If we go to, you can't do that with AI, right? And if we go back to spline, it's the same thing. You are able to rotate and see how it would look like from a certain distance, angle. You can see that depending on, let me go in play mode here. You can see that the material on the character here changes depending on it's affected by the light source. So, and something that you cannot do in AI is rotate over the actual scene. And so when you're gonna make some changes, first of all, you craft the image so it is how you want it to be, as if you had used a 3D program. If you wanted to make changes, then you would have to point at certain areas, and I've made videos about that already, if you haven't watched them, to be able to make the changes that you want, right? And that applies to anything. If you look at these, you can see they have like different materials. You have this one, you have this one, you have these sort of neon-like lights, you have this one, and perhaps this one is similar to this one and this one. So when you model the letter R here, every material is like one part of the model. The point is that it's very time consuming, but if you know how to craft the image to get this type of result, it will go faster. It doesn't mean that it's a cheap, AI is a cheap option, because we're not doing caricatures or miniatures, trends from ChatGPT, and it's not just about the prompt, as some people may say. It's not because you make you write a prompt in a good manner that you're going to get this result. In fact, prompt, in my approach with these, plays a very little part of it. So it's not just about prompt. And it's certainly not a ChatGPT generated image. Here you can see that it's a whole different output. These are like a totem series that I'm doing. And that comes down to how you actually craft those images. I want to have that type of aesthetics. I made a video about it already. This is another aesthetic. And this one and this one, they stem from the same approach in terms of aesthetics, but they are applied to different type of outcome. So here's more typography, here's more like abstract compositions. I think we'll end it there, but for now, bye bye.